Alright, so before we start with the stock or the trigger, we want to go ahead and put our feeding tube back in here. There's two things you want to watch out for. You want to make sure that there's no damage to the front of this before you put it in, but you want to make sure that your tube actually is set in the right spot. You don't want to put it in upside down, otherwise you won't be able to put your rounds in there. So making sure that your access point here is facing away from the barrel, regardless of what orientation you have, and then simply just press that inside. Alright, so now our tube's on. We're going to take our front side assembly, slide it on. Alright, so we're going to put this front side assembly on here. When you're doing this, make sure that you're not putting any pressure on this tube. You want that tube to go in there pretty smooth. And we knocked out our backside here, so just going to realign that. Slide that in. Make sure our feeding tube here is facing upward. That way it's nice, easy, smooth drop ins. Like such. Try to line that up the best we can. Now when you're sighting in your rifle, this is what you would adjust on the front sight if you're gonna adjust your front sight. So just be careful, because you don't want to over torque it one way or the other, which really your adjustments should be done with the rear sight for your sighting in purposes. So get this pretty dang centered here. Press that in, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna flip this over, and there's actually a pin that we're gonna drive in here, and that'll hold all this together. Pin goes in. There shouldn't be a whole lot of fight on this, because there is a small channel inside this that was supposed to go in there. So you shouldn't have to fight it up until the point of where the pin itself actually has flares to basically help hold it still. So we're just going to very gently tap that into place. Make sure it's flush. Alright. Back out, make sure our feeding tube is good here, so you can drop the rounds in. This is good and tight. Now you still can pull this out, because this hasn't actually been put down. There's a set screw right here, which is currently out, but there's a set screw right here that once you tighten that down, that's what's going to hold this all together. So even though there's a pin now in your tube, if you pull this out, both of them will come out together, so still don't be yanking on it. Alright, so speaking of which, let's go ahead, flip this bad boy around, tighten down our vise here. Alright, so now let's grab our set screw. Alright, found our set screw here, and let's go ahead and put that in. Go ahead and tighten that up. Alright, now the sucker's not going anywhere. Alright, now that our tube is on there, everything looks good, everything is tight where it's supposed to be. Now there will be some wiggle in here, that's fine, because remember, there's nothing really tension wise holding on this side. It's just your pin and that set screw on the front. So you can torque this, don't do it. Now for the stock. So let's go ahead and put our trigger inside here. That's a nice snug fit like you want it to be. Got 1, 2 screws set up. Alright, so on this particular one, there are 3 screws you have here. You got this, your stock screw here, and then you got your 2 trigger assembly screws. Now this particular one doesn't have anything that attaches to the actual receiver itself, and this was the one that was missing when I received this rifle. So we are going to fix that, but right now we're just going to move forward. So you got this screw holding the frame on, and you got you got this one holding on the receiver, as well as this one. So this will cinch it down tight, and this one right here is not going to affect the operation of the rifle. So we're going to go ahead and move forward with putting this on here. Alright, there's no special trick to this, you just kind of wiggle it to get it down to where it fits. This particular one, the hammer was not engaged, the safety was not engaged, or the safety is engaged on here. Neither one of those matter when you put that on there. So just however that ends up putting on there, just put it on there. So front screw, get it started. back screw. Let's go ahead and get that going. And there we go. Alright, so real quick, so charging handle works, trigger drops. Let's go ahead and put the safety on, charge it, cannot. Alright, safety off, and it drops. Alright, so safety works, hammer works, everything seems to be working just fine. So, with the exception of the butt pad, which we'll put that back on here in momentarily, we are back in business. She looks pretty good, I think. Now the back is just two simple screws. You can see the butt pad here. Basically just there, two screws. Pretty self-explanatory, yeah? Alright, so we finally reached the end of this project here. Well, almost the end of it. I talked to my buddy about it, and now that we got this thing looking real good, I'm actually happy with the way this turned out. So all that looks real good now on the stock. Remember, we had all that tape, we had a whole bunch of just, you know, not a whole lot of serious imperfections, but just cosmetic stuff. And especially up here on the receiver, that aluminum black turned out really nice. Again, I was worried about that. That ended up taking 3 coats to get that to look the way I wanted it, but it ended up looking really nice. So I just looking at this just realized that I have not put on the sling mounts. So with those just screw in. We drilled the holes previously, just screw that in. When you do that, make sure that you have your washer here. Make sure that goes on there. That way it's good and tight seal on that. So we're gonna do that real quick. I'm gonna spritz a little bit of gun oil on this. Just gonna put some right here, rack that back, put a little bit on the inside, try to get that to where it's a little bit smoother. So any gun that's dry is gonna run rougher than one that's got oil in it. That's an obvious statement. So, all right. So real quick, I'm gonna go slap these sling mounts on, add a little bit of oil to it, then we'll take it outside and we'll put some rounds downrange and make sure that she works as well as she looks. All right, so we're outside, and no, I'm not wearing the Ear Pro. This is a 22 long rifle. Deal with it. So 10 rounds inside the tube. Let's see what happens. Well, fed the round pretty good. All right, let's see. She's running pretty smooth. All 10 rounds, smooth as butter. That's what I'm talking about right there. Alright, so that was for functionality purposes, not accuracy purposes, obviously, because we are going to actually set this up for squirrel hunting for him. So I've got a small Simmons 3x9x40 that we're going to throw in there. I need to check to see if I got rings, but we're going to go ahead and scope this thing up, side it in, and it's time to go home. Alright, so that ran really, really well. So we're gonna go ahead and, like I said, I've got a Simmons 3x9x40 that we're gonna throw on this guy. These guys are a little perfect for little 22 plankers. The only set that I had is a little bit higher set, but hey, they were what I had. It'll start him off. If he wants to change them, he can do so later. But basically, I've got me a small little pocket level that I use whenever I'm putting on scopes, and I've already leveled this guy, so we are level front to back, and we are level side to side. As a matter of fact, I'll bring the camera in and we'll show you. So now we're level front to back. And left to right. There we go. Alright, so now that we've got that set up, now we don't want that to move. Let's go ahead and set up our scope rings here. Now, whenever I'm setting up my scope rings, I always put the screw, there's a screw on one side or the other, always put that away from your ejection so that way this screw doesn't interfere with you either charging it or ejecting of the round. But put that to the opposite side. Put that on there. Get that somewhat hand tight. We're not looking for crazy tight right now. And set this bad boy on top. Alright, so I double check my right to left and I double check my front to back, making sure the rifle is exactly where I had it before. So now, taking the same thing here, front to back is going to be dealt with from the gun, but right to left is the big one here. You want to make sure your scope is level, so that way your accuracy will actually be better because of it. So now granted, this is only a 22, but do the small ones right, you'll do the big ones right. So if you get used to doing this procedure for your smaller 22 rifles, when you start getting up into your 308, 6.5s and so forth, where you're really reaching out there, this is how you do it. This is how your accuracy is maintained up to those distances. So now we're going to go ahead and put these caps on here. Basically just put these down on top. You're going to leave your level up there, because as you tighten these sides down, inherently you're going to move the scope to one side or the other because you're putting tension on one side or the other. So I go ahead and put these screws down here. Just get them started. Don't actually put any pressure on them. Just get the threads going. There we go. Same thing over here. Don't actually put pressure, just get the threads going. Alright, with this last one, I'm going to take it down to where it starts to put a little pressure, and then starts to put a little pressure there. So far our bubble hasn't moved. This is what we want to make sure. Alright, so same thing, we're going to go down so there's just a little bit of pressure. Not actually tightening anything, just a little pressure on that side. A little pressure on this side. Alright, so we're going to go down a couple turns here and just work this back and forth, because you'll see as you tighten down one side or the other, you'll actually see it, that bubble starts to move. You want to make sure that that bubble is staying in the middle, keeping the scope level. Alright, so we're still level there. Alright. Alright guys, now for the fun part. So we got everything set up for the gun. Went ahead and got it sighted in, so it's doing pretty good at 50 yards. So I've got some targets down there that we're going to try to shoot today. Just have a little fun with it. Alright, first things first, let's go for accuracy here. And let's go for the... Let's move this over here. Let's go for the shotgun shell. Let's go ahead and raise this up. We'll make it an accuracy shot here. The rest of the targets I'll just do freehand. But that 12 gauge shotgun shell is kind of small. So let's do. There we go. Are we recording? Let's do this. There it is. Alright. We'll use this as a rest, but get off the freehand here. Where are we at? Where are we at? Let's see. Bottle of water. Gotcha. 1, 2, 3. Oh no. We didn't put enough bullets in it, did we? How about that? Alright, let's put some more bullets in her. Alright, back at it. Ooh, let's get out of this. Let's get out of this brace here. Back at it, and oh, got a hole in it. I gotta aim for the sides here. That way, use up the targets completely. Look at that. Let's shoot the sides of it. All right, moment of truth. Here we go. Let's make sure we're zoomed all the way in for this. Here we go. Make sure the camera is on. The camera is on. Got us about a $50 size target down there. Let's light it up. Ah, it looked like a hit, but a 22 may not be going fast enough. Well, darn. All right, well, that is what it is. Let's go ahead and knock that sucker off because it don't need to be up there. Oh, it's just moving right through it. All right, well, that's all right. Pretty good, fun little gun. I love 22 long rifles. But again, it's a 1973 Marlin Glenfield Model 60. Awesome little gun, fun little gun. Until next time, Suburban Hunt 365. See.